Hi, welcome to Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently, who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. I'm Corey Franklin, and tonight we're going to start out with David Deacon Jones, the Secretary of Defense. Quite simply, the best pass rusher at defensive end I ever saw, possibly the best defensive end in NFL history. He was voted to the NFL 75-year greatest player list, and many people consider him the greatest Los Angeles Ram of all time. He died recently at the age of 74, which is unfortunate because he was number 75, and he was part of the Los Angeles Rams' Fearsome Foursome, along with Lamar Lundy, Roosevelt Greer, and Merlin Olsen, maybe the best defensive line in NFL history. They never made it to the NFL championship because they were always up against the great Viking and Packer teams, but that wasn't the fault of David Deacon Jones. He was called the Secretary of Defense because he was such a great defensive player. He came out of South Carolina in the early 60s. He was mild-mannered off the field, but on the field he was fierce. Here's an ESPN report on David Deacon Jones.
Deacon Jones was as old school can get. He was a Hall of Fame defensive end that created the term sack and then perfected it. He was 74 when he died of natural causes at his home in Southern California on Monday. Jones was the leader of the Rams' Fearsome Foursome for over a decade in the 60s. He finished his brilliant career with the Redskins in 1974. Taking a look at Deacon Jones' career, he was drafted by the LA Rams in 1961. He played 14 seasons, with his best years coming with those Rams. He finished his brilliant career with the Redskins in 1974. Herm Edwards began his career in 1977 and joins us now here on SportsCenter. Herm, when you think of Deacon Jones, what did he mean to the NFL?
Well, obviously, you think about the league then, it was not a passing league like it is now. It was really a run league, but he was known for the sack and also the head slap. I mean, back in the days, before the rule change, obviously defensive ends like Deacon Jones could use their hands and hit tackles, in their ear. And he was famous for the head slap and the swim move, and he was a dominant player. Even today, he was a dominant player in our league. He was big, athletic, fast. And really a guy that had one mission, and that was to hit the quarterback. And he knew it. He would say it. He says, I'm coming to get the quarterback when you go back to pass. And everyone knew it. No one could block him. And you're right. He was a part of that Fearsome Foursome. When you grew up on the West Coast, the thing you learned as a young kid, you got Ram games and you got Minnesota Viking games, and you knew about the Purple Peeper leaders. But if you're a West Coast person, you knew about the Fearsome Foursome.
Herm, when you talk about defensive ends all time, where does he stand in your mind?
He's one of the best ones to ever play the position because he wasn't just a pass guy. He was a run guy. He was a complete player. He was a big athlete. Could run. All of a sudden, all these tapes will be shown on Deacon Jones now, and people marvel at how athletic this guy was. A big man. He could move, great feet. Had a power move, had speed move, and then had the hand slap. And that was what made him really. I mean, he would come up and slap those tackles. And they used to say when he slapped a guy in his ear, it was 2 quarters, and he felt like a bell was ringing in his ear for the whole game.
You hear them talk about the sack there. Deacon Jones didn't invent the sack, but it was invented as a statistic, and he was one of the primary beneficiaries of it, even though they didn't keep it for the first couple of years he was playing. In terms of the head slap, he pretty much perfected that. And here he talks about it in an interview with Dick Butkus.
You had some unique thing called the head slap. Now what was that all about?
Well, it was something that I'm probably not as proud as I once was about it because it does affect one's long-term existence. I mean, it was a straight lick upside your head, and I mean that lick, if not covered properly, can extend the long-term damage. And I'm not too proud of that. Not that I wouldn't do it the same way again. It's not. I just don't know if it fits. I really don't.
That's an interesting.
Yeah. And I'm not a nice guy. Don't by no means. But it is. It's kind of on my conscience. I mean,
stop.
It's got on my conscience, and
The only reason it's on your conscience is because they made it illegal. So come on.
Okay,
You started it. Take credit for it.
Yes,
That's the way I look at it. You're denying it.
And I do.
You're living in denial.
I swear to God, I'm not denying it. But it does make you think a little bit. I mean, I couldn't have hurt all these people. Don't hold me responsible for for the tap upside the head because it was a tap.
Yeah. Look at their head. Look at your hands.
I know
Not
that.
your fingers.
Well, actually, Deacon Jones was a very nice guy off the football field, and here's an interview with him a couple years ago at the Super Bowl, and you can see he was quite a personable guy.
One of the all-time greats, the man who invented the head slap, Deacon Jones. Deacon, how are you, sir?
Hey, greetings, St. Louis.
How are you?
Deacon's here. Let's get this show on the road.
It is good to talk to you, my friend. It's good to talk to you again. How much do you enjoy the madness? Do you enjoy Super Week?
Always. I've been, you got to remember, I've been around this game almost 50 years. So I mean, it's been mad since the day I stepped foot here. I did all this to myself.
You did it.
Yeah.
You helped create this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love it. I mean, what would I do without it? Oh, yeah. When you hit them quarterbacks, this is what you get for it.
That's right.
You got to recognize.
You slap a head or two, you take a quarterback down, and this is what goes on, Deacon.
And it only takes two heads.
And you were the master of that. You're known for that. You're a relentless player, a brilliant defensive player. When you see what's going on today with the NFL and their focus on trying to eliminate injury as much as they can and finding these players and you see players speaking out against it, how do you think you would function in today's NFL with the rules that are in place?
Well, look, we wouldn't have never had the head slap invented. There's a lot of hand work and footwork that you wouldn't have been able to see. It had to be tested out on somebody, so it had to be tested out on heads. I mean, I know what the commissioner is doing, and I applaud him for it. I think that trying to make the game safer and what you think it is dangerous, but it's still going to be dangerous. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
It's going to be dangerous because you have to be very careful that when you're changing things that you don't cause problems.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, when you ask us to do certain things in this game, like make a decision on the move while you got less than a half a second to make that decision. And you ask me to move myself. What do you think about me? I think, that guy that I just beat, he's still following me,
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I slow up or make the wrong step, he's going to put me in the hospital. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be very careful about how you change things, to better the game when you could be making it worse. So I'm all in favor of trying to make the game safer. But then you make it safer by making better players. Mm-hmm. How about that philosophy?
I'm with you.
You make a better player, he can protect his own self.
So for players like Harrison from the Steelers, who at one point was saying, well, I don't know if I can play within these rules. I play a certain way, and that's it. To me, that's being a little short-sighted. It's a reaction. The guys can adjust. That I played this way since I was a kid, so it's impossible to change. Do you buy that at all?
No, I don't buy it at all. Because, I heard this other guy... this big tackle from the Redskins. What's his name? The one that had all the trouble?
Albert Hainsworth.
Talk about the 3-4. Well, you ain't going to find too many guys in the game, period, that like the 3-4. It ain't a question about what you like. I'm a professional. Whatever the coach bring, I'm going to play. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to make it work because that's my job. My job is not to say what I can do and what I can't do. In other words, I'm never going to let you know I don't like this defense. I'm going to make it as good as I possibly can. And that's your job as a player. You can't go through this game or life or anything else that you're doing and making decisions about the rules and regulations and how it's done yourself. You're a player. You're a performer. They pay you to perform. And whatever you come with, whatever defense or whatever situation you come with, I pride myself in the fact that I'll make it work.
Deacon went on to do some acting. He was great in an old Odd Couple episode, which I played part of, except he didn't do much speaking in it. And he was memorable in some of the old Miller Lite commercials from the 1970s.
Roses are red, violets are blue. Light beer from Miller, I love you. You've got a third less calories than the regular beer, and really are less filling, which is something to cheer. But what I like above all the rest is the way you taste. You are the best. Yes, blue is the violet, and red is the rose. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to break your nose.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer, and less.
Deacon Jones, he was one of a kind. Well, speaking of one of a kind, we're going to move on now to Esther Williams, who died recently at the age of 91. One of MGM's greatest stars in the 40s. She was known for, what else? Her swimming. If you saw a swimming pool in a movie in the 40s, it's a good bet Esther Williams was in it. Famous line by Fanny Brice about Esther Williams, "Wet she's a star, dry she ain't." Here's Donald O'Connor talking about her from the movie That's Entertainment, about the great MGM stars of the era.
MGM seemed to acquire talent the way you and I pick up paper clips by the handful. When I was at the studio, We were up to our ears in tenors, baritones, tap dancers, pianists, and they were all good. But this set belonged pretty much to one star, and one star alone. I only wish we'd had a chance to work together. Well, she was not only a lovely actress with a beautiful face and figure, but she could also sing and dance and even handle comedy. And if that wasn't enough, she was dynamite in the water. Of course, I'm talking about Miss Esther Williams. A champion swimmer, Esther was working as a model in a Los Angeles department store when MGM talent scouts discovered her. The studio built a special swimming pool for her on the back lot and starred her in a film called Bathing Beauty. The rest is history. MGM featured Esther in a series of spectacular productions. During her career, she swam opposite some of MGM's most popular leading men. Some of them even got their hair wet. Like Howard Keel, Fernando Lamas, whom she would later marry, Van Johnson, Peter Lawford, Ricardo Montalban, even Tom and Jerry, Jimmy Durante, and Red Skelton. As her fame grew, so did the size and population of her swimming pools. Esther no longer could simply climb up a diving board and jump in. Now she had to be presented like Venus rising from the sea. In the ranks of great musical stars, there have been singers, dancers, musicians, even ice skaters. But MGM saw to it that there was only one Esther Williams.
Yeah, her movies were pretty formulaic, but she was gorgeous, she had a good figure, the camera liked her, and there was no one else to compare with what she did, so she became one of MGM's biggest stars. Here she talks about how she got to MGM with Larry King.
How did this young swimming star of competitive swimming come to film?
MGM did that.
And how did that happen?
They had watched the grosses on the Sony Henny pictures. And that little ice skater, a champion, every little muscle of hers, and they watched that pretty little skater, and they said, let's just melt the water and throw a swimmer in there.
And how'd
did.
They know about you?
The newspapers. Before television, they used to have something in the LA Times and the, Times Mirror, was it called? The Examiner.
Yeah,
we used to have three papers here in this town.
So what happened in the newspaper that got you to MGM?
They used to have regular sittings. I was with the LA Athletic Club. They found you like talent scouts found talent all over. For movies, for Billy Rose's Aquacade, which I starred in. MGM came up to see that show, and they were so surprised to see girls swimming to music. We called it water ballet then. And so they talked to me, and they said, we're going to make you a star. And I was a little turned off at show business because there was a carnival atmosphere to this, being 3 inches underwater at all times with the water on the floor and a broken cot. That's where he was cheap. And a broken mirror. And I said, this is stardom. MGM said, you'll love MGM. Nothing cheap about us. And I said, convince me. So for a whole year, Johnny Hyde at the Morris office called me. And I finally said I was working at Magnum's then. And I said, don't call me at work. I was stock girl. I was hanging stock, taking pretty things like this, like my St. John's knit, and hanging it in a wardrobe department. And then because I didn't have any clothes, they said, wear anything you want. So that was a good, kind of nice thing, a little bonus. It was just fine. I was very happy. I was studying to be a buyer. Well, at first I had to get past my Clark Gable screen test, and that was...
He did the test with you?
Yes. And I always wondered why. Because he was such a big star. He had just come off Gone with the Wind. Rhett Butler was sitting there right before me. I heard him. He brought Carol Lombard in with him when he came to do the test, and she sat right under the camera. Those two were my two absolute favorite. I was a teenager then.
Do you know why he did the test? Did you ever find out?
I found out when I remembered. I said, what did he say when he was there? And why did he have Carol Lombard? And it suddenly occurred to me when I heard him say, as he was leaving stage 30, I told you I was going to kiss me a mermaid today, he said to Carol. And I became known as a mermaid on the lot after that because Gable had said it. And he kissed me about 5 times, and there wasn't a single kiss in the test.
Gable, Lombard, Esther Williams was definitely the bridge to another era that's long gone. Here's Uncle Milty introducing her on TV.
I want you to batten down your hatches, drop your anchor, and get ready for the moorings. We're ready now to pipe right in from Hollywood, one of Hollywood's answer to the steam catapult next to Pepsi-Cola. She's America's favorite liquid refreshment. Here she is, the very glamorous, the very exciting, very talented Esther Williams. Come on, bring her on.
My favorite little Esther Williams bit was a Monty Python court scene where they were playing charades to come up with a verdict with the judge.
Not. Second word, 2 syllables. First syllable. Bird, swimmer. Breaststroke.
Brian Phelps.
No, he was a diver.
Esther Williams, then.
No, don't be silly. How can you find someone not Esther Williams?
Indeed, how can you find someone not Esther Williams? Another one of a kind. We're going to close tonight with Marvin Junior, who died recently at the age of 77, and Marvin Junior was one of the founding members of the Dells, one of the great underrated black groups from Chicago. Actually from Harvey. They were from Thornton High School, and they were the model for the 5 Heartbeats. They were together almost 50 years, and they could sing anything. Doo-wop, jazz, rhythm and blues. They sang great harmonies. The 4 freshmen, the white boys, once said, "We went to Juilliard and we can't sing like you guys do. Where'd you learn that?" And they said, "On the street corner in Harvey." When they were singing doo-wop in the 50s, they bounced between Chess and VJ Records, and they had a huge hit with "Oh What a Night."
Oh, what a night.
Here's Marvin Jr. tell you the story of how the song came about.
Oh What a Night, written by Johnny Funches and Marvin Jr., was inspired by a post-performance party with 5 female fans.
They liked the way we sing, and hey, what can I say? So they invited us over to their house. They lived in the city. And we went down to their party, and they had fried chicken, and they had it all laid out. They even had whiskey and beer, and boy, we had a ball. So the next day we were saying, man, what a party. Boy, what a party. And Johnny said, oh, what a night. I said, say that again. He said, oh, what a night. I said, I love you, dear. And we wrote "Oh What a Night."
Oh What a Night hit number 4 when it was first released in 1956 and was an even bigger hit when it was released again in 1969.
Well, as I said, they could sing anything, but they were basically reduced to backup for a while in the 60s, and they were on this famous record by Barbara Lewis, "Hello Stranger."
Hello, stranger. It seems so good to see you back again. How long has it been? It seems like a mighty long time. My baby.
In the 60s, they changed their style, and they did a famous song in August of 68 called "Stay in My Corner," where Marvin Jr. did a famous long take.
Let's sing "Stay in My Corner."
People just love "Stay in My Corner," especially when Marvin started adding that long note.
When we got to it, we still were short of time. I told him, well, I'll tell you what, I'll do a long note.
He holds the note sometimes so long, we need to go over there to the Marvin. You start holding the note, let it go.
He held notes for 2 minutes. I said, breathe, man, you're going to die. Oh.
That was the first longest playing single in history. The DJs had a chance to go home, eat lunch, get back in the car, come back to the studio.
That's their part of the song. I never knew that when we did that it was going to be that big, but they loved that long note.
Well, that's a good note to close on. I want to thank my producer, Sid Tepps, and as a final tribute to Marvin Jr., my favorite Dells song from 1968, "There Is."